So, hello and welcome back after a weekend where I didn't really give you guys much content. Sorry about that. It's been one of those weeks. It I don't know. I'm just having a moment. So, I don't know how much stuff I'm going to put out. Part of it was due to the fact that it was my birthday last week and I ended up doing just a whole bunch of cooking. It was really good. I mean, part of it wasn't even cooking. Part of it was just assembling, but I did a lot of cooking and I did a lot of stuff and I just didn't really feel like filming it. It is what it is. I made two pies for my birthday. I made a chocolate mint pie, which was really good. I made it with Andes chips and sprinkled mint Oreos on top of it. And I also made a Reese peanut butter cup pie. Always good. I think I have a video of how to make a Reese peanut butter cup pie, on the channel somewhere, and it's always good. I thought about making myself a cake, but then I decided that pie sounded easier to make because we had heated up again and I didn't want to turn on the oven, and B, just anything with chocolate in it is kind of a win in my book. So we did that, and I barbecued, and I made really good Hasselbacked potatoes, and it was a nice time. So I hope you guys all had a nice time too. And then I had a lot of fun on my live stream Friday night. That's always a lot of fun. If you ever are bored on a Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, drop in and say hi. I will always say hello. I never know what I'm going to be doing, but it's always something. Anyway, we left Ivanhoe on sort of a perilous cliffhanger. Not quite cliffhanger. Um, Ivanhoe has been identified by at least one of our three bad guys. He's not telling the other guys, but he's also not telling them. And it sounds like the siege has begun, and Ulfrid, or Urfride, she she's plotting her own revenge, so she has left Ivanhoe in the care of Rebecca, who I do like. I like Rebecca. I'm not sure about Rowena. I guess we need to spend some more time in her POV, but so far, I think my favorite character in this entire book is Rebecca. We'll see if that changes. I hope that you guys are well. We are going to be starting this, as we always do, with a quote, this time from Schiller's Maid of Orleans. So we're going to check out that quote and then we'll get into it. Ascend the watchtower yonder, valiant soldier. Look on the field and say how goes the battle. Schiller's Maid of Orleans. All right. And now let us jump into chapter 29 of Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. A moment of peril is also a moment of open-hearted kindness and affection. We are thrown off our guard by the general agitation of our feelings, and betray the intensity of those which, at more tranquil periods, our prudence at least conceals, if it cannot altogether suppress. In finding herself once more by the side of Ivanhoe, Rebecca was astonished at the keen sensation of pleasure which she experienced, even at a time when all around them both was danger, if not outright despair. As she felt his pulse and inquired after his health, there was a softness in her touch and her accents, implying a kinder interest than she would herself have been pleased to have voluntarily shown. Her voice faltered and her hand trembled, and it was only the cold question of Ivanhoe, "Is it you, gentle maiden?" which recalled her to herself, and reminded her the sensations which she felt were not and could never be mutual. A sigh escaped, but it was scarcely audible, and the questions which she asked the knight concerning his state of health were put on in a tone of calm friendship. Ivanhoe told her hastily that he was not, in point of health, as well and better than he could have expected. "Thanks," he said. "Thanks, dear Rebecca, to your skill." "He calls me dear Rebecca," she said to herself. "But it is in the cold and careless tone which ill suits the word. His war horse, his hunting hound, they're dearer to him than a despised Jew." "My mind, gentle maiden," said Ivanhoe, "is more disturbed by anxiety than my body is with pain. From the speeches of those men who were my warders just now, I learn that I am a prisoner, and if I judge aright of the loud, hoarse voice which even now dispatched them on some military duty, I'm in the castle of Fondeboeuf. If so, how will this end, and how can I protect Rowena and my father?" "He says nothing about me or my father," Rebecca said to herself. "Yet what is our portion in him, and how justly am I punished by heaven for letting my thoughts dwell on him?" She hastened, after this brief self-accusation, to give Ivanhoe what information she could, but it only amounted to this: that the Templar Bois Guilbert and the Baron Fondeboeuf were commanders in the castle, that it was beleaguered from outside, but she did not know by who. She added that there was a Christian priest in the castle who might be possessed of more information. "A Christian priest?" he said joyfully. "Fetch him here, Rebecca, if you can. Say a sick man desires his ghostly counsel. Say what you will, but bring him. Something I must do or attempt, but how can I determine what I have to do until I know what matters are standing outside?" Rebecca, in compliance with the wishes of Ivanhoe, made that attempt to bring Cedric into the wounded knight's chamber, which was defeated, as we have already seen, by the interference of Urfried, who had been also on the watch to intercept the supposed monk. Rebecca retired to communicate to Ivanhoe the results of her errand. They didn't have much leisure to regret the failure of this intelligence, or to contrive by what means it might be supplied, for the noise within the castle, occasioned by the defensive preparations, which had been considerable for a while, now increased to tenfold of bustle and clamor. The heavy yet hasty step of the men-at-arms traversed the battlements or resounded in the narrow winding passages and stairs that led to the various barzentines and points of defense. The voices of the knights were heard, animating their followers or directing means of defense, while their commands were often drowned in the clash of armor or the clamorous shouts of those whom they addressed. Tremendous as these sounds were, and yet more terrible from the awful event which they presaged, there was a sublimeness mixed with them, which Rebecca's high-toned mind could feel even in that moment of terror. Her eye kindled, even though the blood fled from her cheeks, and there was a huge mixture of fear and a thrilling sense of the sublime, as she repeated, half whispering to herself, half speaking to her companion, the sacred text: "The quiver rattle, the glittering spear and the shield, the noise of the captains and the shouting." But Ivanhoe was like a war horse of that sublime passage, glowing with impatience at his inactivity, and with his ardent desire to mingle in the affray of which these sounds were the introduction. "If I could just drag myself," he said, "to yonder window, that I could see how this game is like. If I had but a bow to shoot an arrow, or a battle axe to strike even a single blow for our deliverance, it's in vain, it's in vain. I'm nerveless, weaponless." "Do not fret, noble knight," said Rebecca. The sounds have ceased suddenly. It may be that they join not in battle. You don't know anything about it, said Wilfred impatiently. This dead pause only shows that the men are at their posts on the walls and expecting an instant attack. What we have heard was but the distant muttering of a storm. It will burst before us in all of its fury. I just need to reach the window. You would hurt yourself if you attempted that, noble knight, said Rebecca. Observing her solicitude, she firmly added, I myself will stand at the lattice, and I will describe to you, as I can, whatever is going on. You can't, you shall not, said Ivanhoe. Each lattice, each aperture will soon be a mark for archers. Some random arrow would be most welcome, muttered Rebecca, as with a very firm pace she ascended 2 or 3 steps which led to the window that they were speaking of. Rebecca, dear Rebecca, said Ivanhoe, this is no maiden's pastime. Do not expose yourself to wounds and death, and render me forever miserable at having shown you the occasion to do so. And if you must, cover yourself with this ancient buckler, and show as little in the window as you can. Following with wonderful promptness the directions of Ivanhoe, and taking for herself the protection of the large and ancient shield which she placed against the lower part of the window, Rebecca, with tolerable security to herself, could witness part of what was going on outside the castle, and report to Ivanhoe the preparations which the assailants were making for this storm. Indeed, the situation which she thus obtained was peculiarly favorable for this purpose, because being placed on an angle off the main building, Rebecca could not only see what passed beyond the precincts of the castle, but also commanded a view of the outer work which was likely to be the first object of assault. It was an exterior fortification of no great height or strength, intended to protect the postern gate through which Cedric had so recently been dismissed by Fondeboeuf. The castle moat divided this species of barbican from the rest of the fortress, so that, in case it was taken, it would be easy to cut off communication with the main building by withdrawing a temporary bridge. In the outwork was a sally port corresponding to the postern of the castle, and all of it was surrounded by a strong palisade. Rebecca could see from the number of men placed for the defense of this post that the besieged entertained apprehensions about its safety, and from the muttering of the assailants, or the mustering of the assailants in a direction nearly opposite to the outer work, it was quite plain that that was what had been selected as a vulnerable point of attack. These appearances she hastily communicated to Ivanhoe, and said, the skirts of wood seem lined with archers, though only a few are advanced from its dark shadow. What banner? Said Ivanhoe. Under no ensign of war that I can see, said Rebecca. A singular novelty, said the knight, to advance to storm such a castle without a pennon or banner displayed. Do you see who is acting as leaders? A knight, clad in black armor, is the most conspicuous, said Rebecca. He alone is armed from head to heel, and seems to assume the direction of everyone around him. What does he have on his shield? Said Ivanhoe. Something resembling a bar of iron, and a padlock painted blue on a black shield. A fetterlock and a shackle bolt azure, said Ivanhoe. I know not who may bear that device, but I think it might now be my own. Can you not see the motto? I can barely see the device itself at this distance, said Rebecca. But when the sun glances fair upon his shield, it shows. I will try to read it. Are there no other leaders? None of mark and distinction that I can see from my station, said Rebecca. But doubtless the other side of the castle is also being assailed. They appear even now preparing to advance. Oh, gods protect us! What a dreadful sight! Those who advance first bear huge shields and defenses made of plank. The others follow, bending their bows as they come. They raise their bows. God of Moses, forgive the creatures that you have made. Her description was here suddenly interrupted by the signal for assault, which was given by the blast of a bugle, and at once answered by a flourish of the Norman trumpets from the battlements, which, mingled with the deep and hollow clang of the nakers, a species of kettle drum, and retorted in notes of defiance the challenge of the enemy. The shouts of both parties augmented the din, the assailants crying, St. George for Merry England, and the Normans answering them with loud cries of En avant de Bressy, Bossant, Bossant, Fond de Boeuf, à la recousse, according to the war cries of their different commanders. It was not, however, by clamor that the contest was to be decided, and the desperate efforts of the assailants were met by an equally vigorous defense on part of the besieged. The archers, trained by their woodland pastimes to the most effective use of the longbow, shot, to use the appropriate phrase of the times, so wholly together that no point at which a defender could show the least part of his person could escape their arrow shafts. By this heavy discharge, which continued as thick and sharp as hail, well, notwithstanding every arrow had its individual aim, and flew by scores together against each embrasure and opening in the parapets, as well as at every window where a defender could either occasionally have posted or might be suspected to be posted. By the sustained discharge, 2 or 3 of the garrison were killed and several others wounded. But, confident in their armor and proof, and in the cover of which their situation afforded, all of the followers of Fond de Boeuf and his allies showed an obstinacy in defense positioned against the fury of the attack, and they replied with the discharge of their large crossbows as well as with their longbows, slings, and other missiles. So, to the close and continued shower of arrows, and as the assailants were necessarily but indifferently protected, the defenders did considerably more damage than they received. The whizzing of the shafts and of the missiles on both sides was only interrupted by the shouts which arose when either side inflicted or took a notable loss. And here I must lie like a bedridden monk, said Ivanhoe. Well, the game that gives me freedom or death is played out by the hand of others. Look from the window once again, kind maiden, but beware that you are not marked by the archers. Look out once more. Tell me if they yet advance to the storm. With patient courage, strengthened by the interval which she had employed mental devotions, Rebecca again took post at the window, sheltering herself, however, so that she was not visible to anyone down below. What do you see, Rebecca? Again demanded Ivanhoe. Nothing but the cloud of arrows, flying so thick as to dazzle my eyes and hide the bowmen who shoot them. That cannot endure, said Ivanhoe. If they press not right on to carry the castle by pure force of arms, the archery might avail very little against stone and bulwark. Look for the knight of the fetterlock, fair Rebecca. See how he bears himself, for as the leader goes, so will his followers. I don't see him, said Rebecca. Craven, exclaimed Ivanhoe. Does he blench from the helm when the wind blows high? He blenches not. He doesn't, said Rebecca. I see him now. He leads a body of men close under the outer barrier of the Barbican. They're pulling down the piles and palisades. They hew down the barriers with axes. His high black plume floats over the throng like a raven over a field of the dead. They've breached the barriers. They're rushing in. Oh, they've been thrust back. Fondeboeuf heads the defenders. I see his gigantic form above the press. They throng again to the breach, and the pass is disputed. Hand to hand, it's now man to man. God of Jacob, it is the meeting of two fierce tides, the conflict of two oceans moved by bad wind. She turned her head away from the lattice, as though unable any longer to endure the sights. Look again, Rebecca, said Ivanhoe, mistaking the cause of her retiring. The archery must in some degree have ceased, since they're fighting hand to hand. Look again, there's less danger. Rebecca again looked out, and almost immediately said, Holy prophets of the law! Fondeboeuf and the Black Knight fight hand to hand on the breach, amid the roar of their followers who watch the progress. Heaven strike with the cause of the oppressed and of the captives. She then shrieked and said, He's down! Who's down? Said Ivanhoe. For our dear lady's sake, tell me which one has fallen. The Black Knight, said Rebecca, faintly, and then instantly again shouted, But no, no, oh, the Lord of hosts be blessed, he is on foot again, and he fights as if there were 20 men strength in his arm. His sword is broken, he snatches an axe from the yeoman, he's pressing Fondeboeuf blow to blow. The giant stoops and totters like an oak under the steel of a woodman. He's falling, he's falling. Fondeboeuf, said Ivanhoe. Fondeboeuf, said Rebecca. His men rush to his rescue, headed by the Templar. Their united force, it's compelling our champions to pause. They're dragging Fondeboeuf back inside. The assailants? They've won the barriers, have they not? Said Ivanhoe. They have. Oh, they have, said Rebecca. And they press the besieged hard on the outer wall. Some are planting ladders, some are swarming like bees and endeavoring to ascend upon the shoulders of their other people. Down go the stones, the beams, and the trunks of the trees upon their heads, and as fast as they bear the wounded to the rear, fresh men supply their places. Oh, good God, you have given men your own image, that it should be cruelly defaced by the hands of our own brethren. Don't worry about that, said Ivanhoe. This is no time for those thoughts. Who's yielding? Who's pushing? The ladders have been thrown down, said Rebecca, shuddering. The soldiers lie groveling under them like crushed reptiles. The besieged are winning. St. George strike for us, said Ivanhoe. Do the false yeomen give way? No, said Rebecca. They bear themselves right yeomanly. The Black Knight approaches the postern with his axe. The thundering blows that he deals, you may hear them. Stone and beam are hailed down on this champion, but he ignores them like they were thistledown or feathers. By St. John of Acre, said Ivanhoe, raising himself on his bed. I thought there was only one man in England that could do such a deed. The postern gate, it shakes, said Rebecca. It crashes, it's splintered by his blows. They're rushing in. The outer work is won. Oh, God, they throw the defenders from the battlements into the moat. Oh, men, if you indeed be men, spare the ones that can resist no longer. The bridge that communicates with the castle, have they won that yet? Said Ivanhoe. No, said Rebecca. The Templar has destroyed the plank on which they crossed. Few of the defenders escaped with him into the castle. The shrieks and cries that you hear tell the fate of the rest. Alas, I see it is still more difficult to look on victory than on battle. What are they doing now? Said Ivanhoe. Look again. This is no time to faint at the sight of blood. It's over for now, said Rebecca. Our friends strengthen themselves within the outer work that they have mastered, and it affords them such good a shelter from the men's shot that the garrison can only shoot a few bolts onto it from time to time, as if they're trying to disquiet them rather than injure them. Our friends, said Ivanhoe, will surely not abandon an enterprise that is so gloriously and happily won. Oh no, I will put my faith in the good knight whose axe has rent heart of oak and bars of iron. Singular, he again muttered to himself. If there be two who can do a deed of such daring do, a fetterlock and a shackle bolt on a field of sable. What does it mean? Do you see anything else, Rebecca, by which this black knight can be distinguished? Nothing, said Rebecca. Everything about him is as black as the wings of a night raven. Nothing I can spy that marks him further, but having once seen him put forth his strength in battle, I think I would know him again, even among 1,000 warriors. He rushes into the fray as if he were summoned to a banquet. There's more than just strength. There seems as if the whole soul and spirit of the champion were given into every blow that he deals his enemies. God absolve him of the sin of bloodshed. It's fearful, but still magnificent, to behold how the arm and heart of one man can triumph over hundreds. Rebecca, said Ivanhoe, you painted a hero. Surely they're only resting to refresh their force, or to provide the means of crossing the moat. Under such a leader as you have spoken this night to be, there can be no craven fears, no cold-blooded delays, no yielding a gallant prize, since the difficulties which render it hard render it also glorious. I swear by the honor of my house, I vow by the name of my bright lady love, I would endure 10 years of captivity to fight one day at that good knight's side. Alas, said Rebecca, leaving the window and approaching the couch of the wounded knight, this impatient yearning for action, this struggling with and repining at your weakness will not fail to injure your returning health. How could you hope to inflict wounds upon others before you are even healed? Rebecca, said Ivanhoe, you know how impossible it is for one trained to actions of chivalry to remain passive as a priest or a woman when they are acting deeds of honor all around him. The love of battle is the food upon which we live. The dust of the melee is the breath of our nostrils. We don't want to live any longer than when we are victorious and renowned. Such, maiden, such are the laws of chivalry to which we are sworn, and to which we offer all that we hold dear. Alas, said Rebecca, and what is it, valiant knight, save an offering of sacrifice to a demon of vainglory and a passing through the fire to Moloch? What remains to you as the prize for all the blood you have spilled, all the travail and pain you have endured, all the tears which your deeds have caused, when death has broken the strong man's spear and overtaken the speed of his war horse? What remains? Said Ivanhoe. Glory, maiden, glory, which gilds our sepulchre and embalms our name. Glory, said Rebecca. Alas, glory is the rusted mail which hangs as a hatchment over the champion's dim moldering tomb. It's the defaced sculpture of the inscription which the ignorant monk can barely read to the inquiring pilgrims. Are these enough rewards for the sacrifice of every kindly affection, for a life spent miserably that you can make others miserable? Or is there such virtue in the rude rhymes of the wandering bard, that domestic love, kindly affection, peace, and happiness, that they're so widely bartered so that you can become the hero of those ballads which the vagabond minstrels sing to drunken churls over their evening ale? Oh, by the soul of heaven, said Ivanhoe impatiently, you speak, woman, of what you don't know anything about. You would quench the pure light of chivalry, which alone distinguishes noble from base, gentle from churl and savage. It's what rates our life far, far beneath the pitch of our honor, and it raises us to victorious over again, despite pain, toil, and suffering. It teaches us to fear no evil but disgrace. You're not a Christian, Rebecca. And to you are unknown these high feelings which swell in the bosom of a noble maiden when her lover has done some deed of imprisoning which sanctions his flame. Chivalry! Why, maiden, it's the nurse of pure and high affection. It's to succor the oppressed, the redresser of grievances, the curb of the power of the tyrant. Nobility is just an empty name without chivalry, and liberty finds the best protection under her lance and shield. Indeed, said Rebecca, I am sprung from a race whose courage was distinguished in the defense of their own land, but who never warred, even while yet a nation, except at the command of our God, or in defense of our country from our opposition. The sound of the trumpet wakes Judah no longer, and her despised children are now the unresisting victims of hostile military oppression. You've spoken well, Sir Knight. Until the God of Jacob shall rise up for his chosen people another Gideon or a new Maccabees, it ill beseemeth the Jewish damsel to speak about battle or war. The high-minded maiden concluded the argument in a tone of sorrow, which deeply expressed her sense of the degradation of her people, embittered perhaps by the idea that Ivanhoe considered her as one not entitled to interfere in a case of honor, and that he was incapable of entertaining or expressing sentiments of honor and generosity to her. How little he knows my heart, she said, to imagine that cowardice or meanness of soul, it is what is inside, because I have censured the fantastic chivalry of the Nazarenes. Would to heaven that the shedding of my own blood, drop by drop, could redeem captive Judah. Nay, would to God that it would free my father, and that his benefactor, from the chains of the oppressor. The proud Christian should then see whether the daughter of God's chosen people dared not die as bravely as the vainest of Nazarene maidens. Then she looked towards the bed of the wounded Ivanhoe. He sleeps, she said, his nature exhausted by sufferance and the waste of spirit. His wearied frame embraces a first moment of temporary relaxation before he sinks into slumber. Alas, is it a crime that I should look upon him, when it may be for the last time, when yet but a short space, and those fair features will no longer be animated by the bold, buoyant spirit which forsakes it not even in sleep? When the nostril shall be distended, the mouth agape, the eyes fixed and bloodshot, and when the proud and noble knight may be trodden upon by the lowest caitiff of this accursed castle, yet stir not when the heel is lifted against him. And my father, oh, my father, evil it is with his daughter when his gray hairs are not remembered because of the golden locks of a youth. What know I but that these evils are the messengers of Jehovah's wrath to the unnatural child who's thinking about a stranger's captivity before her parents? Who forgets the desolation of Judah and looks upon the comeliness of a Gentile and a stranger? But I will tear this folly from my heart, even though every fiber bleeds as I rip it away. Then she wrapped herself closely in her veil and sat down, a ways away from the bed of the wounded knight, with her back turned towards it, fortifying, or endeavoring to fortify, her mind not only against the impending evils from outside, but also against those treacherous feelings which were coming from within. And that is the end of the chapter. Okay, yeah. Rebecca's my favorite character. I have a whole lot of sympathy with Rebecca. She's reminding me, and this is the second book that I'm reading that has done a thing that reminds me of the play Les Mis, but she's reminding me of Eponine. Not in that they've been friends forever and that Ivanhoe even looks at her as a friend. It's just that whole unrequited love thing. I identify with that so much. So I always root for them. They never actually end up with happy endings most of the time, though. But I am totally on Team Rebecca. Team Rebecca, I don't know who we're going to hook Team Rebecca up with, but you know what? Maybe Rebecca can just be happy on her own and become a world famous doctor. In an alternate universe, that's probably what's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen, though, in the next chapter? We'll find out together. Thank you, as always, for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter, and I will see you tomorrow.